Okay. Hello. Hello, guys and gals. How you doing? It's me, Ben. Yes. Your friendly neighbourhood ex-hospital porter. I'm back with another video in this series that I've been doing lately for Facebook as well as for YouTube. So I don't do much videoing on Facebook, so it's nice to keep my hand in, as it said. And this is called Social Media, a Hospital Porter Reacts. Yes, Marley Pumpkin, I know I'm not a hospital porter, but I used to be. That's the point. You wouldn't go up to Don Shipley and say, "Hey, Don, why do you keep saying all this stuff about Navy SEALs? You're not a Navy SEAL," things like that. No, only me. Well, you're going to have to stop, Marley, I'm afraid, because I know. Okay, guys, so I did say I was going to make this video a while ago, and now I'm making it about social media. I'm going to go through all my favourite social media and not so favourite social media as well. I think I do both. So to begin with, what am I going to... I'm not going to go through all the social media I follow. It's impossible. There's too much. I'm going to exclude the very obvious ones, actually, which I follow because it's just completely the same sort of thing as I do, really. For example, Rich Planet, Project Camelot, the Basis Project. Some of these things I've been involved with directly as speakers, things like that, interviewees, stuff like that. richplanet.net, checktheevidence.co.uk, and these other kind of websites, which is just they're so big and so much like me, it's obvious that I'm going to follow them. I don't have to reiterate anything because another reason I don't want to cover them on this video is I've mentioned them before on other videos so many times it's not necessary. We're going to talk about the kind of social media that I don't talk about very much, if at all, to give you an idea of what I can recommend and the kind of things that I think I do particularly like and you might like as well. I'm also going to go through some of my hate follows too, which should be very, very amusing. I've got quite a lot of those, actually. I'm a bit of a sucker for that sort of thing. So let us begin. I'll just display capture here. The first one I want to talk about is this guy. This is Zooy Music. Now, Zooy is a sort of hip-hop artist, and his songs are very, very different to the kind of hip-hop you get nowadays, which is pretty awful mostly. He's much more like a hip-hop artist from the 80s. There were some good bands, actually, in the 80s. It's not my sort of music normally. I'm the wrong colour, really, to be a complete aficionado. I'm sure I'd be culturally appropriating if I became a big fan. But there were bands like, Eric B. and Rakim, De La Soul, a long time ago, that were really creative. These days, it's just generally some idiot with sunglasses waving a gun around, yelling N-words and MF words, and calling women hoes. I don't know whose idea it was to call women a word which means a gardening tool, but there you go. This guy is another exception to that rule, and he's a modern artist. But the reason, his music is very thoughtful, and his lyrics are very, very sort of poetic. But the reason I follow Zooy has got nothing to do with his music, actually. It's because his commentary on social and political issues is bar none brilliant, especially on the V word and C word that we've just been through. He's been astonishingly good. If you scroll down now, I think he's kind of moved on a little bit from that, but he still does bring out some really, really good stuff as well. And he still mentions the C word because he doesn't want us to forget it, because a lot of people are forgetting the C word now. And this actually came up on a Rich Planet show. We did a brilliant show I did with Gareth just before he died, where he talked about we talked about the wisdom of Zooy Music regarding the what demic, the pandemic, the V word and stuff like that. A very, very good. Very, very against mandates and things like that. Very, very good artist indeed. And so I do recommend following Zooy Music on Twitter. The people I'm going to talk about, on this program, actually have. They often exist on many different platforms. In fact, all of them have at least one presence on a platform which I'm not going to cover. I'm actually going to focus on the platforms they use the most, the ones I tend to follow them on. So it could be Zooy. I think he's also on Getter. I think he's got an Odyssey channel. I don't actually follow that much. I tend to follow him on Twitter. So I'm going to focus on the platforms which I use to follow people what I use to follow them. Now, Next thing I want to talk about is quite a famous figure, actually, or infamous. It's Majid Nawaz. Now, he's just been banned from Twitter. And he used to be a mainstream figure, actually. He was a politician. He was an MP with the Liberal Democrats for a while. Then he actually started off as a foolish youth. He was a radical Islamist. And his experience of being tortured and imprisoned in Egypt sort of woke him up a bit. Since then, he's now sort of middle-aged, and he is much wiser. And I say he's very, very with it, actually. He did some interesting shows with Sam Harris and people like that. He's been very criticised by the wokies over his position on Islam, even though he himself is a Muslim. Here he is on Joe Rogan. He's been on Joe Rogan loads of times. Very, very good interviews with that. Really, I haven't mentioned Joe Rogan in this. I'll talk about Joe Rogan later. He's very good as well. But here he is on Fox News. He talks a lot about the P word, as I said, the C word, the V word, etc. Oh my goodness me! See, he's now he's a fan of They Live. Yes, I will be doing the They Live watch party. By the way, I know some of you are waiting for that. That will be coming up probably starting maybe later this week or next week. So yeah, he's a very, very. And see, Twitter's banned my New York Post story. He's been banned everywhere. And Babylon, he's protesting against Babylon B being banned now. He's a fan of Tulsi Gabbard, just like me. She's very good. Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, is standing up. She's exposing a lot of the lies to do with Ukraine, and especially the fact that, as I've said before, the Russians are capturing. The reasons Russians haven't invaded Kiev is they're capturing all the biolabs and they're capturing the nuclear power stations, including the Chernobyl disaster site. And Tulsi has been speaking about that. She's about the one person in the Democrat Party I trust to tell me the time of day, quite frankly. Anyway, we're not talking about her tonight, we're talking about social media. But do follow Majid Nawaz. He's just started an Odyssey channel. He has several different spaces on social media. I tend to follow him on Getter since he got banned from Twitter. Okay, the next person I want to talk about. Oh right, here's his Odyssey. I just want to show you this. This is his Odyssey channel. He actually has a
in the name of the common good, which is in the name of the people, which is where the phrase enemy of the people comes from.
I'll be looking forward to that enormously. That's Majid's channel now. Okay, the next person I want to talk about is this chap here, Morgoth's Review. Now, I have mentioned Morgoth before because he's come up in a couple of my videos. I've actually done an entire replies video to him about UFOs, which is a really good video. Actually, I really like that. I know he watches my stuff because he's done a couple of things which I think means. I think he's reading my stuff. But he covers all kinds of... Now, his speciality is the kind of anti-woke stuff, the white guilt thing. He's totally against that. And that's a very important area I think we need to go into in this day and age. The whole cultural Marxist thing. He's a great analyzer and debunker of that. I was particularly keen on his coverage of the Sarah Everard murder. In fact... I found his own coverage of that very inspirational when I made my own coverage of the Sarah Everard killing, if you remember that. I think, was it 2 or 3 videos about that? And I referred to Morgoth in that. The best place to follow him, he has his own website here on Substack, but the best place to follow him, I think, although he does like written reviews and things, and he does a lot of written stuff, the best place to get him, I think, is his videos. He's very artistic. He has some people to do some great intros. He's got some great animated and really cleverly filmed intro segments and things like that, which somebody did for him. And he speaks with an educated sort of Geordie accent, if that's not a contradiction in terms. Obviously an intelligent... Sorry, Truth Seekers Northeast. He's an intelligent chap. He's obviously a very intelligent chap. Clearly working class, but bright, intellectual, self-taught. I actually invited him to one of my Truth Seekers Northeast talks, and he wasn't there unless he... I don't know what he looks like. He might have been there, and we didn't know. So if you were there, Morgoth, thank you for coming. No one knows who he is. I mean, the Hate Not Hope have been trying to dig him up for ages, and they can't. They've doxed almost everyone else they don't like within the conspirasphere. and the anti-woke movement, but they can't find Morgoth, so I hope he'll be all right. I mean, I hate the way they just try and smear people and destroy their careers. But the best place, I think somehow he's still on YouTube. I don't know how that can be. He's not been banned yet, but last time I checked, he was still on YouTube. He has just been banned from Patreon. But if you want to support him, he says, "Pay me a pint," he says. You can give him some money through various channels, which I've done a couple of times. Yeah, very, very interesting. Talks about all kinds of subjects. Oh, the hate reading the Guardian thing is hilarious because he has this intro. Oh, well, can I play it? I don't know if I can play it, or is it? No, I can't play it here, but he has this intro when he's got this series of videos called Hate Reading the Guardian. The intro is this guy, a sewerman, a sewage engineer, climbing down a ladder into a sewer full of excrement, wearing protective clothing, of course. Which is kind of symbolic of what reading the Guardian is like when you're on our side of the debate. So check out Morgoth's review. Now we're going to come into some. This is a personal acquaintance and good friend of mine, Jamnoy72, a good friend, comrade, and soul sister. Now she's someone I actually know personally. I've met personally. She covers all kinds of subjects. She uploads quite regularly, actually, usually quite short uploads, of usually less than 10 minutes. On various subjects. She covers chemtrails in great detail, the C word in great detail, the C word and V word, lots of other subjects as that as well, including she does a lot of life coaching, self-healing, spiritual meditation and things like that as well. You see, this is the angel robin bird. This is about simply a bird that comes and visits her. You see that? Can you see all that? Okay, there we are. Little robin. Yeah, and her latest video was this one. Thomas Barden Reese watched this as well, I was pleased to see. This is Walk With Me, My Beautiful Day. If you ever want a bit of escapism, there's a URL there. If you ever want a bit of escapism, and not just escapism, but it's spiritual inspiration, then I can't do more than recommend Jamnoy72. She covers the dark stuff, but she also goes into the light. We have collaborated. If you've seen my Bilderberg Fringe Festival reportage, which was back in 2013. That's how long we've been doing this. Oh, God. Can you believe it? That's how long we've been doing this. Yeah, we made a video basically. Well, it was on my channel, but she was in it. We kind of collaborated on it. It was very, very good. My favourite bit is when I call Crime Stoppers about the Bilderberg group. Okay, another one. This is Amazing Polly, amazingpolly.net. This is a young woman from Canada called Polly St. George, and she's the best place to follow is on BitChute. She's very, very active on BitChute. These are all links to her various websites. And she has been banned of course, from Twitter, and she's been banned from YouTube. But her commentary is absolutely excellent. She's a likable, cheerful person who's not down in the dumps. She's not doom and gloom. She's an optimist. She's she's also very open to the idea of the 17th letter of the alphabet and the short for anonymous word. Do you know what I mean? I can't say it here. But she's also very, very positive about that, and she explains very clearly why she believes that it's true. This is where she mentions the Oliver Stone documentary, Ukraine on Fire, which has now gone viral. It's been banned from YouTube, I believe, but it's all over alt tech. I mean, anyone with any sense is going to alt tech now. These are her videos here. She uploads. I think I get a notification of her about every couple of days. She's very active, and the video's usually about half an hour or so. But do check out Amazing Polly. Look, everything old is Q again, and she talks about the 17th letter of the alphabet, which you can't talk about here. So Amazing Polly, do check her out. And a very similar content creator from Ireland, actually, is Computing Forever. This is Dave Cullen. He has another channel called The Dave Cullen Show where he reviews media. But he talks. He's very similar. He uploads about the same rate as Amazing Polly, with the same duration videos on similar subjects. Polly tends to do like a talking head vlog. He tends to use animation now. He has this animated avatar of himself. And that's what he actually looks like there. You can see here when he's doing this interview with this chap here, John Collins.
On the way from where?
James Collins. There he is, Dave Cullen. He used to be in the kind of anti-feminist area. That used to be his kind of speciality. He's called Computing Forever because he used to do electronics reviews. Then he discovered the men's rights movement, and then he's moved into other areas now. Very, very good indeed. Okay, so next one. Now we get into the UFO territory. As I said, I'm not going to... There's lots of UFO and sort of paranormal channels that I follow, including skeptics of them as well, which I'm not going to talk about here, because I refer to them all the time in this channel anyway, and I don't really need to say anything more about them, because it's so obvious that you've already heard me talk about them. This is one I haven't mentioned much. It's called Trail of the Saucers. And this is the blog it's on Medium.com. It's the Medium.com blog of Bryce Zabel. And he comes out with various articles. These are usually 20-minute reads or so. They're quite long and detailed, but they're very, very good. We have here U.S. intelligence leaders speak out on UAP. Excuse me. You see that all right, yeah. The UAP speech we deserve to hear. There's one where he had like a rant and he was really swearing, and it's... Now is a really good time. Yeah, now is a really good time to disclose UFOs. These are all his pinned articles here. But he's actually not the only contributor to this. As you see here, there's someone called Mark Hammonds here. There's Ricardo Bastos Cunha, another one. David Bates, Ryan Sprague. Ryan Sprague I've mentioned before. Ryan Sprague does Somewhere in the Skies, a UFO podcast stroke YouTube channel. I should also recommend. I'm not going to cover that because I have mentioned Ryan. He's one of the ones I've mentioned before several times. I'm not going to cover Ryan tonight, but it's well worth following. Shoshana Kaufman is talking about experiences and things like that. And the funny thing about Bryce Zabel, he followed me on Twitter the other day. I don't know why. I do share his stuff and click like on a lot of his stuff because I follow him on Twitter. I don't know why I suddenly looked and saw he'd been following me, and I thought, well, weird. You know, I don't know the bloke very well. I've met him twice and spoken to him. He probably doesn't remember me. But then I checked back just a couple of days later, and he wasn't following me anymore. So I think he sort of followed me because he saw something I posted about UFOs. Looked down, saw some of the other things I'm into, and then thought, nah, I don't want to be associated with this person. Now, this is something very interesting that I've noticed, actually. I've noticed this actually in the alternative world, in the woo-woo UFO paracon world. There's a kind of new mainstream emerging, a non-mainstream mainstream, if that's not a contradiction in terms, it's a mainstream that is kind of like within the fringe. It includes people like Bryce Zabel, Ross Coulthart, and there's a few others as well. Brian Sprague, I think, is in that mainstream. Now, the mainstream it tends to consist of journalists, YouTubers, social media commentators, Twitter mavens, people like that. There tends to be sort of centre-left or left-wing politically. Very, very focused on one issue, so it's usually UFOs, and they don't want to get too bogged down in other conspiracy theories. Now, I'll tell you why I think that is, because this thing was Zabel where he followed me, and I look and he isn't following me anymore. He hasn't blocked me or anything. He's just not following me anymore. I had the same experience with Ross Coulthart. Now, as you know, you're probably aware by now, Ross Coulthart has written an absolutely groundbreaking classic book on UFOs, which I reviewed for UFO Truth magazine. I then wrote to Ross, and I sent him a copy of my review, and I said I'd like to get him on the Herpanwo show. And he was very, very keen. He wrote back and he says, yeah, I like that, Ben. He'd be pretty good. He liked my review. I mean, I was honest with... I thought it was a good book, and I was honest about it. If I thought it was a rubbish book, I'd have said so. Like I do say in this series of videos things I don't like. I actually thought it was a very good book. And then suddenly the emails dried up. He just ghosted me. And I think the reason he did that was for the same reason that I suspect Bryce Zabel is no longer following me. He looked a bit more into me and what I'm like, the kind of things I talk about, my style, my presentation, things like that, and my manner, and decided this is a person who's a bit too weird for me. I don't want to be associated with him. So I'm outside that fringe mainstream, because it's interesting, no, isn't it? Because like we've all been on the same side really up till now. We've all been sort of weirdos who've been rejected by society and what have you. However, now there's this new mainstream within the fringe, which is being shot at by both sides, or rather, they're on the bridge shooting at both sides. Because they're against the mainstream. They fight back against the mainstream narratives to do with UFOs. Yet at the same time, they also are rejecting other people within the fringe community as being too weird. Or possibly it's a political thing. We know we're not left-wing enough or something. But this actually goes back, with terms of Zabel himself, it goes back a lot earlier, because after the 2011 Exopolitics Conference, remember the video I made on that? After the 2011 Exopolitics Conference, he wrote an article called UFOs and 9/11 Conspiracies Don't Mix, where he said that people with UFOs should not look at 9/11 conspiracies because it makes ufology look bad. It's associating with the wrong kind of people and things like that, which I thought was ironic, because when I was actually in the 9/11 Truth Movement, the leader of the Oxford branch of the National 9/11 Truth Movement said the same thing to me about UFOs for the very same reason. He said, if I'm talking to people, just stick to 9/11. Don't go off into UFOs or anything. We don't want to be associated with that sort of thing. It makes us look bad. I thought that was pretty ironic. Anyway, Andrew Johnson, Richard D. Hall, of course, immediately wrote a reply article, or wrote long replies to Zabel's article, quite rightly explaining how UFOs and 9/11 conspiracies actually should mix. They are relevant to each other, and the UFO issue should never be dealt with unless you do it holistically with other issues, because it's all connected. So anyway, that's Bryce Zabel there for you. Despite the fact that he's obviously got a low opinion of me, I still follow him. I mean, as with Andrew Johnson, I have more than a low opinion of him, as you know. But this doesn't mean I've changed my mind on any of the things he talks about. Okay, next one. Styx Hexenhammer 666. This guy, he does a load of videos about the occult. He's a kind of a occultist, very into magic with a K. He looks it, actually. He has this kind of, and with the 666 in his name and everything. He's got this Ouroboros symbol, which is his logo. It's kind of... the best thing, though, is his political commentary. He's a great analyst. I mean, he's very similar to Dave Cullen and Amazing Polly. He has a far more sort of... a far more pedestrian style than they. I mean, there's no frills on his video at all. He just sits there. He does a speaking vlog at the camera, but he does it very, very well indeed. I mean, he's very intelligent. He does very good analysis. He's not always right, but he does very good analysis of things. I disagree with it quite a lot of what he says, actually, but still very, very worth watching. He's the most popular channel actually on BitChute. He was very popular on YouTube. He's now been he's not been banned, funnily enough, but he has been algorithmed and he's less popular there. But he's become one of the biggest stars on alt tech. His BitChute channel is like, I think was the top BitChute channel at one point. I think he's not far behind on Odyssey. I think he's living in the Netherlands now. He recently got married. His wife's pregnant, actually. Now, I think the reason he hasn't been banned from YouTube Styx is basically that he does alt tech exclusive. He has a general list of videos, and he puts them all on alt tech. But he only puts some videos on YouTube. He only puts a few of them on YouTube. Less than half these days go onto YouTube. And of course, the ones on Alt Tech are always going to be more exciting, aren't they? Like everything is on Alt Tech, far more exciting than what's on YouTube. So that's him. He does have a Twitter. His Twitter's not very active. As I said, all the people I talk about here are active on more than one platform, but I'm going to highlight the ones that I follow, the platforms I follow them on. He's on Twitter. He's not so active on Twitter, but I still do follow his tweets. He's still interesting on there. I mean, he may actually. Let's just have a look. He may have got more active recently. Sticks Hex and Hammer 666. Let's have a look. Yeah, he uploaded. When did he upload? When did he post? He posted 2 hours ago. He has been. Yep. He's now more active on Twitter than I remember him being. There's a tweet about Julian Assange. He says, Julian Assange is marrying his fiancée Stella Morris today at the high security prison. Oh yeah, he's covered a lot of Julian Assange. Oh look, there she is. But of course he's. Oh, that's sad, isn't it? First picture of Julian Assange, fiancée Stella Morris in her wedding dress. She's going to go in there and get married to him, but then of course she's going to have to go straight out again, isn't she? A bit like what about like Joanne? What's her name? Captain Mark Richards, Joanne Richards, Captain Mark Richards' wife. I met her, and she had a wedding like that. She's just going into the prison with her wedding dress. He was there in his prison overalls. The only guests that were allowed were like the warders and the prisoners. They're all standing there. The prisoners are in their overalls, and the warders are in their uniforms. They're standing there smiling for the photos. No other guests were allowed. And there was no need to check the wedding cake to see if I had a file inside it, because it was just cupcakes in the prison vending machine. It's sad. So I'm digressing now, but that's a story for another time. I've talked about Joanne Richards before. Okay. This is the first of a series of. I'm actually going to discuss more than one platform for this guy, because this guy actually has several different kind of incarnations or profiles, which is quite unusual. He doesn't. Most of these people have the same profile. This guy doesn't. This doesn't mean he has sock identities, but he uses the same name wherever he goes. However, he has a kind of different personality in each of his different platforms. So I'm going to cover the first one here. It's podcast. This is the LotusEaters.com, the home of the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, which is in audio and video form. And this website has lots of content on it. I am, of course, talking about Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. The podcast of the Lotus Eaters is his show he does every day. Well, he's not the only one who does it. He's one of about 8 or 9 different contributors. And there's a lot of very interesting people, like Leo Kirst, the comedian, is on there. Andy Ngo is on there, he's a famous journalist, and several other people who contribute. Some of them regularly. There's this young chap called Callum who's on most of the shows. Kevin Logan, Christy Winters called him Joey. I'll be talking about them later. And the website itself has like if you buy a subscription for a small price, you can read lots of behind the scenes stuff as well, behind a paywall. I was thinking of doing that for a start. It's just there's so many things I do want to subscribe to, which have paywalls. There's so many paywalls I want to look over that finding the right one is tricky. But this is near the top of my priorities of when I'm next going to buy my way over a paywall. I actually bought my way over a couple of paywalls. And so they cover all kinds of subjects. Again, rather similar to Morgoth's review, from a kind of anti-woke, no white guilt perspective, which I think is very important, as I've explained. So do check out that one there. I'll be coming back to Sargon later with these other channels. I'll just got some other things to do in between. Right. The next one I want to talk about is of course someone else. He's actually been on a couple of my videos, and I've interviewed him on Panama Radio many times. It's Nile Murphy, and his latest project is Through an Opaque Lens. and this is his kind of hub, which is his Facebook page. But he's also on all the other platforms. He has a widespread, and he's a very, very dedicated user of alt tech. But here's his YouTube channel here. All his videos go onto here. There's a new one. I've got to watch that later. Just stop oil, the latest watermelon activist. I've got to watch that. But he's really good, actually. He's likable. He's friendly. But he's thoughtful as well. And he's not scared to speak his mind, and I think he's quite courageous. He's not scared to speak his mind, even though some of his ideas are unpopular in alt platforms. He comes kind of out of the psychedelic community. In fact, I was a big fan of his old show, the Shamanic Freedom Radio, which is how I got to meet him. I actually appeared on his show, I was on Shamanic Freedom Radio a couple of times, and I actually appeared on. I appeared on a show first in 2009. It was the David Icke event at Avebury, if you remember that. But do check him out. He's actually on all the alt tech video sites as well. With this, so his vlog, and it's generally him walking around in places. And he lives in Costa Rica now, so it's quite interesting to see his his background. He comes from Britain, but he's lived in several places. He lives in Costa Rica, and it's interesting to see his background behind him and the location he's in. And he's very approachable. I mean, he always replies to my comments, things like that. So do check him out. Another person I've never met. I do regard him as a personal friend, actually, although I've never met him. And you've probably guessed I'm talking about Slaxer. Yeah. Slaxer is... I've actually not watched his channel for a couple of months, and I do sometimes feel I have to take time out from his vlog. And this is no disrespect to him, but I do find it emotionally very heavy. And of course, he's changed its name, Slaxer Mental Health Journey. He speaks quite candidly and openly about his own depressive illness and his own social anxiety and things like that. And I really, really respect him for that. I do very much. I see he's got a new one I've just put up. As you see, I have been watching his channel. I've gone back to his channel lately after about a 2 or 3 month break. And I will be watching that later. I'll be watching this new video later. But I first came across him very early in my days on YouTube, before I was even uploading. I joined YouTube, I think, 2008, something like that. And I didn't do anything for about a year. No, it must be earlier than that, because it must be earlier than that, because I started uploading in 2008. But so it must have been a couple of years before that, maybe 2006 or something. I first came across him way back then, and when he was very early, his very early time on YouTube. And it's really sad, but so many of his old catalogue is gone now. He's privatised it, which is very sad. Because I never got through his back catalogue before he just basically put it all on private. Because he does get into arguments with people. He's had run-ins with various people, including me. That's where the whole Abingdon Town Centre thing comes from. But we resolve these issues without any hard feelings. He's a single father, bringing up his daughter, who's a lovely young girl, and trying to cope with everything that's going on in his life. And as I said, his stuff's heavy. He is quite a morose person. In fact, we've got into arguments about things about human nature and things like that, and he's absolutely convinced that I'm completely wrong about certain things. I'm as equally convinced that he's wrong about it. And when we discuss this, he becomes quite frustrated. He becomes quite frustrated over it. But as I said, I have to take time off, but I always come back to him because some of his insights are really brilliant. He's intelligent. He's very intelligent, and he's the kind of person. He used to look quite hippie-like. In fact, I used to compare him to Opaque Lens. However, if you watch Nile and you watch Slaxer, real name Dave, you'll know that the two are like chalk and cheese. If you put them into the same room together, they'd annihilate each other in a burst of antimatter. They're totally different from each other, and I don't think they'd get on. I mean, I've never met him. I mean, he's, as I said, he's moved now. He still lives in Oxford, but he lives a bit further away from me. He lives a couple of miles away from me now. But he used to live literally about 10 minutes walk from me, and I've never met him. Weird, that, isn't it? That is Slaxer. I do recommend him very much. I'll go through a couple more of Sargon's channels now. Sargon, as I said, this is his main channel. I don't check it out very often because I tend to just stick to podcast of Lotus Eaters. But I see he has uploaded 3 days ago another video on here. He still uses his old YouTube presence on his old YouTube identity. He never calls himself Sargon of Akkad on the podcast of Lotus Eaters. He's just Carl. And he's a lot better behaved. He doesn't swear on Lotus Eaters. He always swears. He swears like a trooper on his YouTube, his other independent YouTube channels. But that's his main one, Sargon of Akkad. These channels keep disappearing every now and again because he gets banned at certain points. And he sometimes sets up new channels. Sometimes he repeals and gets them back. This is the Thinkery, which is like his... it kind of was his shitposting channel. It's now more kind of like for his short stuff. Although he has some long videos in here. You see here, No King of England. Yeah, so he covers historical things. He also does gaming as well. Slaxer has some gaming videos too. I've got a couple as well, but these are more dedicated gamers. And here you can see is Akkad Daily, which is his most newest channel, which he hasn't used for over a year. That's the last thing I saw of him. I actually watched that. You see by the red line, deplatformers will continue until morale improves. Yeah. He does interviews with people sometimes on these channels, which are interesting. He does live streams on elections and things like that. Yeah, Sargon, I respect a lot. Though I've done a couple of reply videos to him too. One on UFOs. Sargon, like I said, he doesn't go into the areas I like to go into, the whole conspiratorial things. He said he used to be a 9/11 truther and he stopped. He's not. He's a debunker of UFOs, but he tackles like Morgoth's review. He tackles the anti-white stuff, the woke stuff. He's against that. And in fact, he has these various avatars of himself dressed up as this King Sargon of Akkad, the original Sumerian king. And with one, he's sitting there with a cup that says on it SJW Tears. So do check out Sargon of Akkad. GB News. Now, they've not been so good lately, GB News. This is kind of like the British equivalent of RT. They cover all kinds of anti-establishment things. I mean, the thing about GB News is they won't go into the areas I go into, but they go into some of them simply because they're not part of the mainstream. They're not regulated. They're independent of the mainstream media, and it's very interesting. There's loads of really good. There's some anti-woke stuff. It's a bit more milk toast than Morgoth or Sargon, but they cover politics mostly. And they're one of the few. They're kind of like they're very right of centre, but they have the same kind of facilities as more left wing, the usual left wing centrist kind of left of centre stuff that you get, or far left stuff you get on the mainstream media. And they cover things like they're not scared to talk about the grooming gangs, for example. And they're not scared to tackle feminism. They have some really, really good commentators on them. And they used to have like a lot of mainstream commentators defected to them, like Gitto Harry, Neil Oliver. No, not Neil Oliver. What's his name? Big King Jock. The red-haired Scottish guy. He did. And Eamon Holmes was in them. Yeah. I forgot his name now. This guy used to do A Week in Politics and Newsnight and things like that. Big King Jock, what's he called? He was on there for a while, then he quit. He stabbed them in the back. But the absolute cherry on the cake when it comes to GB News is Neil Oliver. I don't need to show you much about him, but I can't find him here now. But he does these monologues which are outstanding. I think they're going to become historical documents. And he's poetic, he's passionate, he's courageous, and he says things that no one in the mainstream would say about the C word and about the V words and things like that, about the pandemic and the lockdowns. And his commentary has been, he's like Zooy Music. He's on the level of Zooy Music in terms of his understanding. And I can't recommend his monologues, his videos enough. They're on YouTube. Just put in Neil Oliver GB News, you'll find them all. He used to present history programs on the BBC, and he's well trained. He's a great orator, and I think he's really become a national treasure. His videos were getting they were getting millions of views within days. And some of the GB News stuff, it overtakes the mainstream. It's more popular than some of the mainstream. Okay, next on the list is... It's That UFO Podcast. Again, going back to UFOs now. Now, That UFO Podcast is it's a post-2017 new ufology emergent. It's a group of guys who got together, and they started it literally after the December 17 UFO scandal thing broke out. So basically, they are, as I said, new ufology, as the term I call it. Their analysis is really good. They're really interesting people, and they've really come a long way. And their style, and I think their analysis, and their information, and their educational ability is so good that they've really stolen the scene. I know a lot of people are really miffed about it. A lot of people who've been into UFOs for years and years and years are really miffed about that, because there's these people they call young guns who just there's people who've been in this for years. I've been into this for a couple of decades now. There's lots of people who've been in even longer. I know people who've been chasing UFOs since the 60s. And some of them, and not all of them, but some of them, they see these young guns coming through. They literally set up that UFO podcast is only a couple of years old, and they're stealing the limelight, and everyone goes, "Oh, damn it, it's not fair." Well, there's the only reason they're stealing the limelight is because they're very good and because they're giving people something they want. The solution, if you feel jealous about another person's success, as always, is to do a better job yourself until you share it. I personally don't mind. I mean, they're a lot more popular than I am. Although I was doing Hapanmo TV and Hapanmo Radio and Hapanmo Voice for ages and ages and ages before they were probably still normies, and they've kind of been woken up by all this. Yet, I'm pleased for them. I don't feel resentful of other people's success. If other people do better than me, or more popular than I am, so be it. I do I do my thing. People can take it or leave it, and I know a lot of people leave it. Probably, I'm still, after all these years, I'm still only sort of on the mediocre level in terms of popularity. But I don't care. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I haven't changed my style. I haven't thought, well, how can I do better to get more popular? No, I'm going to do what I think is right, because some people do things to get more popular, which they probably wouldn't do because they sometimes have to compromise some of their beliefs and things like that. I'm not going to do that. Now, they're not perfect. UFO Podcast and that UFO Podcast is not perfect. They did an absolutely lousy program actually a couple of weeks ago about the Pentuck incident. They've taken like many people in ufology, they've taken a really skeptical line on the Pentuck incident of 2016. Now, as you know, because I'm actually the first ufological journalist to cover this subject at all when it first emerged. I think it's very, very good. I think it's a very good case. I think it's evidentially strong. I've interviewed two witnesses now. I've worked closely with the principal researcher, Gary Jones, and the main witness, Kaz Clark, and I've met the other witness. You've seen the videos I've made of this. I think it's for real. Kaz just made another video explaining why it wasn't a military exercise. But unfortunately, that UFO podcast, although I did write to them actually and suggest, why not have Kaz or Gary on? I should, maybe actually, I'm sure Kaz and Gary could do that themselves, but I did actually put a comment on there saying you should have Kaz or Gary on. It's still worth watching though. It's probably the best of the sort of post 2017 new ufology social media platforms, I think. You can get it on all the. It's essentially it's an audio podcast, but they have a Twitter page, they have a Facebook page. I follow them there. You can get them on all the apps, all the audio apps, iTunes, RS, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Right. Now, Stefan Molyneux, I wasn't sure whether to mention this guy because I got his bloody newsletter. Go away. Of course, he's very, very well known to this channel. I've done numerous reply videos to him. You see, Computing Forever's just popped up on Telegram. That's good. That's good. Did you see that? You did, yeah. See, I get a lot of these people I follow on Telegram as well. But leaving aside the uploads I've done, the reply videos I've done to him, which I know he's seen at least one of them because he used one of my catchphrases on one of his podcast ones. Leaving aside when I make a reply video to Stefan, it's because I'm critical of him in some way. I've found something he's done wrong and I want to talk about it. However, what I don't do, and I haven't done yet on this channel, is talk to you about the things he gets right. And he gets a lot of things right. And he's a great orator. He's an educator. He's very, very informative, very, very inspiring. And I find him enthralling. I really do. I don't agree with everything. Actually, well, that's the whole point of the reply videos. I make the reply videos when I don't agree with him. But when I do agree with him, I think, this is brilliant. This is just so brilliant. He was doing a fantastic. I was just, I put one on my earphones at work just today, actually. I'm lucky. I'm one of these people who's lucky enough to have the kind of job where you can do that. When I'm at work, I can actually put earphones in and just listen to things I want to listen to while I'm working. Not everyone has a job that can do that. And I was listening to one of his early shows, and he was talking about, about the slave mentality and about the slaves attacking themselves so the slave master doesn't have to. It's very similar to what David Icke says about the sheep out-sheeping the sheep and dispensing with the sheepdog and policing each other. And he said something that really struck a chord with me. He was saying, have you ever noticed when there's some kind of dispute, have you ever felt you're always the one who's in the wrong? People generally blame you when they say you're the one who's in the wrong. Sorry, I'm flickering again. Don't know why that is. You ever wondered that? You somehow it feels like you're always the one who's in the wrong. And I said, yeah, I've noticed that. At the hospital and things like that, it's just, if there was something wrong, I tended to get blamed for it. If there was some kind of dispute between me and another person, people tended to take the other person's side. And Stefan said, it's because you're reasonable. It's because most people don't have any moral principles. They'll just support the person who's really the most bombastic rather than the person they think is the most reasonable. If you're reasonable, if you don't just get angry and start hurling abuse and throwing your weight around, and you sit down, you want to discuss things rationally, they won't support that because even though they believe you're right, it's just easier and quicker to support the bombastic person. I thought, wow, blimey. That was literally just today. I was listening to one of his podcasts. So yeah, do check him out, freedomainradio.com. He's been accused of things. I mean, there's a famous. Some people accuse him of running a cult. I mean, there's this famous story. There was actually a documentary about this, about someone called Barbara Weed. Now she's a woman actually lives here in England, and her 17-year-old son defooed. Now defooed means foo is family of origin. Stefan's been accused of encouraging children to abandon their parents. That's actually very unfair. What he does is he said if you have a destructive relationship with your parents, you shouldn't continue it just for blood being thicker than water, etc. And she blames him for it. This woman and her husband blame him for this thing. However, it could be that because I listened to the interview with Barbara Weed's son, and it's on Free Domain. I can't remember what number it is, but it's somewhere it's an early one he did, and he was crying. He was very, very upset and sad, and it's pretty clear that it's his family didn't seem to be the happiest family in the world, and it could be that Mrs. Weed and her husband need to look at that rather than just blaming Molyneux, because he was crying, and it's pretty clear he was very upset and disturbed and confused young man. And his family didn't seem to be, from his point of view, didn't give him the support that he needed. So that's Stefan Molyneux. Okay, back to UFOs again. Of course, the Black Vault. This, of course, is John Greenwald Jr.'s website here. There's so much on here; it's unbelievable. I can't follow all this stuff actually because he posts like a 2-hour video. It'll pass every so often, I think once a week. But he has so much else as well. He has a podcast. You can get merch. There's a Facebook group, chat, the Paranormal Case Files, FOIA document. His speciality is the Freedom of Information Act requests. Now, he's been doing this since he was like 15, since he was a little kid at school. And he's now in his 40s. And he's literally dedicated so much. I think he said at one point he's managed to get like 5,000 plus documents through FOIA. And the stuff he's got hold of is really incredible. I don't even need time to go through all these things here. History, intelligence. There's so much here. He's appeared on a couple of UFO documentaries as well. And he did a very good interview actually with Ryan Sprague, Somewhere in the Skies. I have actually mentioned him actually on one of my UFO disclosure videos, and that particular interview with Ryan. He's recently published his recent breakthrough is the knowledge that the Barack Obama Presidential Library has masses of UFO material on it, masses. It's just been revealed, which makes it throws a different light onto Obama's interviews, didn't he, when he was on the Jimmy Kimmel show a long time ago, when indeed since after he was president, he was on the James Corden show and did a rather strange interview. So yeah, I mean, this guy. What's the thing about John Greenwald? I mean, I think when disclosure comes, which, as I've said before, unusually for me, I don't think it's going to happen this year. It's the first time I've said that, isn't it, since 2015. I don't think disclosure's going to happen this year. But he'll be one of the people we can thank for it. And what's more, he's... what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say, sorry. But he's... do recommend John Greenwald Jr. What's more is he is very, very cautious. Now, he's not a skeptic, but when I first heard him talking, when I first discovered him, I thought he was a skeptic because he was debunking a lot of stuff that I believe in. And I thought, hang on a minute, this ain't right. And I actually wrote a little reply to him saying, I'm writing a response to this UFO skeptic about what he's got wrong. But later on, the thing is, as you know, because I've been covering this in my UFO disclosure videos, he has, when he comes across evidence which is convincing enough, he will change his mind. He's done that over the whole TTSA ATIP stuff. Because when TTSA ATIP first appeared in December 2017, I went straight over to the Black Vault to see what he was saying. And he was saying, this could be just animated, this is just animated stuff. It's not from the US Navy. Some kid made this in a basement. And of course, when more information came out over the next few months, he didn't dig his heels in and do the usual skeptic thing. No, I'm not even going to look at it. No, he changed his mind. Do you recommend the Black Vault? Right, so on to another UFO, just yet another UFO thing. I'm nearly through the UFO ones. A post-disclosure world. Now, I've mentioned this guy before. UFO Jesus, as he's nicknamed. His name's Ryan Robbins. He's a young American chap who does very stylish, very well put together, very well produced videos, and he's got his own unique style. He's called UFO Jesus because of his hair and beard, and he wears a kind of like a biblical kind of gown. He has this very gospel-like look to him, I must say, and sometimes he's totally informative. He does interviews and things like that with people. He does monologues about various things to do with UFOs and the disclosure process. He's very much an exopolitician. He's into the whole disclosure thing. But sometimes he flies off in a bit of a poetic tangent, and I find him hard to follow. I haven't actually watched him for a couple of months, actually. Not because I'm turned against him, but because I've just had other priorities. I will go back to his channel now, actually, I think. His videos, he's got a couple of long ones, hour plus. Most of them are like 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes they're less. And he's not scared to call people out. He will say if he thinks people are wrong, but at the same time he will. He's positive and open-minded about things. So do check that out. Post-disclosure. Well, I did actually give him a shout out on a video, I think last year sometime. Now let's go on to my hate follows. Oh yes, I have hate follows. I'm not the only one. Surely I'm not the only one who has hate follows on social media. Where you sit there and you look at these people and you think, you just repeat the line from the Muppet Show theme, sung by the two old men in the private box. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never go. It's really kind of torture to have to watch the show. They go and they watch the Muppet Show from the private box, and they can't stand it yet. They keep coming back. And I'm not the only one, surely, who has hate follows. There's a practical side to it. It's good to be able to see what these people do, what they're up to, to find out what the enemy are thinking. Now, in terms of my hate follows, I'm going to do the same thing I did in terms of my like follows, which is I'm not going to focus on the obvious ones. So I'm not going to talk about the hate follows I mention regularly on my channel, because you know all about them anyway. And I've talked about them in detail. I'm going to talk about hate follows I've not mentioned before, or mentioned a lot less. And the first is Mike Stutchbury. This guy is a kind of... he lives in Germany now. He left Britain after Brexit. He's married to a German wife. And he can't bear to be in Britain in the post-Brexit world. And he's been on with Kevin Logan a couple of times. Very, very woke, very in favour of affirmative action. Supports white guilt, things like that. Always, as you see, he's always retreating. Hate not hope. Hate not hope is another of my, as I call them, another of my hate follows. I listen to their podcasts and things like that. But I have mentioned that before. But he's also quite obnoxious. He's rather like, I don't know if you know Steve Shives. He's similar to... He's actually Australian. He has an Australian accent. He lives in Britain. He's married to a German wife. He's now living in Germany, embracing the... He wraps himself in the gender study professor's apron every night, and he walks... That's the EU flag. And he walks down the street with this symbol of progressiveness. He's kind of the British equivalent of Steve Shives, who's an American... He was an American male feminist, wokist. And, so... He's like that. I don't really understand why these people do it. I mean, I'm going to talk about another example in a moment, but white guys who support feminism. It's like I could use all the cliches. A turkey voting for Christmas, a Jew supporting the Nazis, a black guy supporting the Klan, and things like that. But I don't have to go through these contradictory cliches. But I just think, why? This is really, it's a really serious issue. I think if they ever took power, they'd kill us. I mean, they literally would. If you give people who feel racial hatred political power, what happens? Well, we know what happens. It's happened many times in the past, and I could give you an example from history, but you've already thought of one, haven't you? And you just thought of another. It's universal. But they got this idea that. Oh, it's all right. No, we'll just give power to these people who feel racial hatred. And then all they'll do is they'll take away white male privilege. It's a thing which actually doesn't exist, but they think it does. They'll just take away your privilege, and then we'll all live happily ever after. I thought, no. So these people are literally digging their own mass graves, and I don't know why they do it. But Mike Stutchbury is one of the biggest example of this. And here's another. Again, this is a guy I have referred to many times. Oops, sorry, just... This is a guy I've referred to many times, and I've done a couple of reply videos to him. It's Kevin Logan. Now, the thing about Kevin Logan is he hardly ever uses any social media now except except Twitch. He's almost completely on Twitch now, which is annoying because Twitch videos are absolutely loaded with ads. And I've talked about Kevin before. I covered him I do follow him on YouTube, but he only uploads he uploads clips of his main videos to YouTube about once every month. and it's just his stuff is just. He's this young chap from Birmingham, a big, bushy-faced, thick-haired, thick-bearded guy who speaks with a strong Brummie accent, and he's and again he's a very extremely a very doctrinaire male feminist. He's got this series called Descent of Manosphere, where he just slags off people who basically any white male who doesn't hate themselves, basically. And I must say, he's witty. See, he's a good presenter. I think one of the reasons I follow him is because despite in terms of political opinions, I'm the exact opposite of him on almost everything. But I do find him very, very interesting to watch. It's partly his style. He's quite witty. He's quite funny at times. And I've done a number of reply videos to him. In fact, I think I've done 2 or 3. One of them, I consider one of my best videos. I think, which one was it? Oh, it was Kevin and Christy did a takedown of Dave Cullen Computing Forever, because Computing Forever, I mentioned earlier, used to be like a new atheist, and then he became a Christian. And Kevin and Christy Winters, and I'll talk about her in a minute, they got together basically and had slagged him off horribly. So I did a reply video to both of them. And I consider it one of my favourite videos. One of the best ones I've ever done. I think deep down, I actually feel quite sorry for Kevin, because he doesn't strike me as a malicious, hateful person. I think he's, unlike a lot of these wokies, he's actually... Stop flickering! Oh, God. I don't know what it's... I've tested the webcam. It's working fine. I don't know what it is. It must be something to do with OBS. Yeah, I hope it goes away in a minute. But, yep, Kevin is, I think he's a young chap. I don't know how old he is. He's not that young. I think he's 30-something, but he's quite immature in a way, in many ways. And I think he has this attitude, which I've seen. I'm going to get on the dragon juice, I think. He has this attitude, I think, that maybe he can... I don't know if he's got a girlfriend, actually. I think he might have, but... That this is the way to a woman's... To earn respect from women, to become a kind of popular man among women, is to be a feminist. And it's not. It's not. It's a lesson that I sort of learned when I was a teenager, and unfortunately Kevin still believes it. That's what I think. That's looking at him. I think that's analysing him psychologically. And as I said, I don't like amateur psychologists, but I'd say that's what it is. But I don't dislike Kevin. I don't. I don't dislike him half as much as he would me. I don't know if he actually knows who I am. I don't dislike him half as much as he would me. Should he come across my videos. He probably has, actually, at some point. Now let's come on to... Now, I can't say the same. I hold him... I can't say I have the same warm feelings for Christy Winters. Here's her channel. She changed the design again. Christy is Kevin's sort of paramour, or... It's a weird kind of like... I think he's definitely in the friend zone with her. But I actually don't think he actually is interested in her in that way. I don't think he fancies her. I used to think he was like trying to he was like her suitor, and he was working with her because he fancied her. I don't think he does. I don't think he does, but he does admire her. He looks up to her, which is why I think I always said that she was going to end up with Coach Red Pill, and he's going to come and see her one day. And she's going to be like, he'll open the door and she'll be there in her dressing gown, and then Coach Red Pill will be behind her, and it'll be obvious what they've just been doing, and he'll be very disillusioned by that. And should that day come, I'm going to say it's sad that happens, because he'll have learnt the same lesson that the rest of us had, but he'll have learnt it the hardest way possible. Because even though he doesn't fancy her, I think he does respect Christy. He expects her to stand by certain principles which she won't. People like her never do. Christy, what's the thing about Christy Winters? I did a reply video to Christy Winters called "White People." A reply to Christy Winters. I don't know if she's seen it. Fucking flickering. Stop it. No. So I'm nearly finished now. Anyway, nearly finished. I'm going to try and find out what's wrong, what's causing this flickering. I don't know what it is. It doesn't do it on Skype, you see. I've used the camera on Skype. It doesn't do it. It's something to do with OBS. Anyway, the thing about Christy Winters is that she's a social scientist at a university. And I used to use the term brainwash when I talked about her. But I don't think she's brainwashed. I think she's a brainwasher. She says things which are so contradictory, which she knows are not true. For example, the Waukesha crash, she kept calling it an accident. She said there's no way. She said, for example, with the Waukesha crash, where a guy basically rammed a Christmas parade with his car, she said there's no evidence that was a terrorist attack. There's no evidence that was deliberate. It's an accident. Before we know it's an accident. Well, that's absolutely not true. And there's no way she can't know that. There's no way she can't know that. I find her very smug. I find her she's rude, and she's bitchy, and she's very sort of like she's really thinks she seems to have. I don't know how to put it. I just don't. I think she's kind of female equivalent of Professor Brian Cox. That being said, as I said I made a video about her where I addressed all the horrible things she'd been saying about white people. She's very keen on the woke stuff, and she's the ultimate expression, and she's a very aggressive promoter of white guilt, wokeism, cultural Marxism, things like that. And I really, in this video, I think it was more than 3 hours long, I tackled everything she was saying about white people. She's probably seen it at some point. She hasn't replied, as far as I know. But I did say at the time, don't because the worst thing you can do with these people is you can start posting abuse at them and things like that. Don't do it. Don't approach her in any way, at all, like that. If you're going to, as Sargon said once, if you're going to send them abuse and threats and things like that, you might as well just send them money, because it comes to the same thing. So if you want to criticize her, do what I did, make a polite, rational video which doesn't attack her personally in any way. Same with commenting on her videos, but for goodness sake, don't go sending them threats and things like that, because or abuse, calling them names, because that's their greatest dream come true. That's everything they want. Now, Christy Winters is a dangerous person. She is a very, very dangerous person, and there's no excuse for what she's doing to the youth of this world, and I hope one day she faces justice. And when I say that, I mean literally we will have to set up tribunals and things. I'm not suggesting any kind of unlawful action or anything that breaks the law. So as I said, don't approach her, okay? We're going to have to wait for the right time when people like her will face justice. Kevin Logan, I think, I would actually stick up for and say, leave him alone. But she is a knowing mind controller, I think. And I think she should face the full extent of the law. Right, finally, last of all, Metabunk. Now, I wasn't sure whether to do this because I've talked about Mick West loads of times, but I wouldn't call him a hate follow. I mean, Mick West is actually somebody I could sit down and have... I could sit down and have a pint of beer with this guy. I could, and I could have a sensible discussion with him. If it was Professor Brian Cox, the beer would go over his head. But this guy I can talk to on a civilized level. This is his website here. It's quite extensive, actually. There's a lot of material here. He hasn't uploaded on YouTube for quite a while. He's uploaded a couple of sub 5-minute videos over the last couple of months, but he used to do much longer ones. He had this entire series called it was Coming Through the Rabbit Hole or something like that, or Coming Out of the Rabbit Hole, and it was actually interesting because he talked to ex tinfoil hatters, people like me who changed our minds, and I must say I found them interesting. He was always respectful. He was always polite, and he wasn't like Christy Winters. He didn't didn't call people names or call people's or to try to disparage people from his more powerful position as the host. Christy does that. If you post things in her chat she doesn't like, she goes, she has this really smug tone. Oh, not another silly idiot racist, and things like that. He doesn't do that. Mick West is actually, I think, a likeable person. I think at some point he's going to change his mind. I think he has. I said this actually in my Sufon video. I don't need to repeat myself. But I think he does have the emotional maturity which most skeptics lack to change his mind. That being said, however, he does seem to be ignoring evidence at the moment quite significantly. But he does maintain, like I say, polite dialogue with people. He's done some very good interviews with UFO Jesus. His Metabunk's most famous for its forums. It's one of the biggest outside, extra Facebook, Twitter, social media platforms in the world. I'm not a member of it, but he talks about everything. He has UFOs as well, but he discusses other things such as 9/11. Chemtrails, his original speciality was chemtrails. But as you see, he does flat Earth as well. It's the flat Earth. Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, so that's my my list of social media platforms. The Hospital Porter Reacts. I've got to say, this list is not exhaustive, and I may actually do another video about social media, because there's a lot here I deal with on social media that I've not actually talked about, and so I might come up and I might do that as well. But anyway, for those of you watching on Facebook and those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much. If you can see me through the flickering, I appreciate you watching me again. I really, really do. Do check out the chat. Do check out me out on Facebook. Keep an eye on my feed. You need to send me a friendie if you want to see it, because it's private to anyone who's not a friend. But YouTube, of course, you can watch anytime. And do please, you guys, why do you not read? I said this before. I'm not going to moan too much. But why do you not read her Panmo voice? This is my blog. These are short little. There's a lot of material on here. This is my principal written blog. There's a lot of material on here that is not on YouTube, including links to. These are links to interviews I've done here. I was on this show called Tales of the Unexplained. So all my links when I'm a guest on other people's shows are here. See Russia banks in gold there. Near-death experience caught on camera. Disappearing ATMs, the cashless society, that's beyond Raconta's news, a major UFO sighting in Ireland, and this article here, hating Russians, I'm really pleased with. It's a short. Most of my articles are like 5 to 10 minute reads. This is like a 5-minute read. I really like this article, and it's had like 35 views. And I know why, of course. It's because I'm algorithmed. As I said, I've mentioned that Stagecoach. If you go onto a Stagecoach bus, you can't access any of my pages, because it's considered inappropriate material, misinformation, and all that rubbish. So obviously, I'm being algorithmed by Google and by Blogger, probably, and by various other internet hosts. But you guys, I still get hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, watching my YouTube, despite the fact that I have been shadow banned on YouTube. So, you know about Her Panmo Voice. Please do go over and read it. I'd love to know what you think about it. Leave me a comment. I publish all comments that are non-abusive and non-trollish and non-spam. And I get into I've got in a really long conversation under a certain article with what's his name? So a guy who actually comments on my videos. I've forgotten his name. I think it was Musketeer or something. He comments on my videos, and I had a long conversation with him. And I'd love to do that. And also join the Her Panmo forum as well. It's even easier actually if you join the Her Panmo forum, which is like this here. So the banner, of course, is by the little alien from Probe, and you can talk about all kinds of things here. There's the Lodge, the crazy stuff, Ben's books. And there's a private board as well, which I don't really use anymore. That's just for certain members. And there's all kinds of things here. Have a look at what hospital portering, general discussion, spirituality, the troll pit. That's not literally for trolls. That's just for people who get really wound up. Yeah, I do. I do kind of wish I'd like. I'm not moaning at you or anything like that, but it'd be nice just you to pop over there and just check out my stuff on the blogs. Anyway, guys, thank you Facebook, thank you YouTube. Great to talk to you again. See you again soon. I'll be. Oh, by the way, for those of you watching on YouTube, I will be doing a live stream probably Sunday. I'll put up the notice probably on Friday. I'm going to do a watch party for They Live. I promised. That was a request by a viewer. I'm going to do it. I think it's a good idea. And I'm also going to do the cryonics one as well, which I've been sort of putting off for a while. That's the Sunday one will probably be cryonics, but check out the notice anyway. And those of you on Facebook, don't forget, go and sub to my YouTube channel, Ben the JR Porter. Thank you, all of you. All the best.